crisis. So I'm not here to tell you, crisis management means an alternative management approach. There's good planning, that's one approach, and then there's crisis management, that's another approach. And you pick the one you like. No. Good planning is the right approach. Crisis management is simply because we're human, and Murphy is around there with his law, and no matter what we do, things are going to happen. But it isn't a substitute for solid organizational structure, good planning, sound tracking, all the things that a well-run organization ought to have in place. This is going to be your fallback, your insurance. This is basically damage control. We want to make sure that we don't allow a crisis to impede our functioning, to bring us to our knees, to have ripple consequences, that are undesirable. But an organization that perpetually lurches from crisis to crisis is itself suffering from a fundamental crisis. That's our slogan for the day. So, obviously, crisis management is the backup. Ooh, that was nice. Okay. You can see it was late at night when I did the slide. Bye.
Latitudinal. What the heck is that?
Who what?
I'm still trying to figure out. You know what that is?
Which one?
That word that you just used? Latitudinal?
In the previous slide?
No, I think it's a platitudinal.
Oh, platitudinal. Right. Yeah.
Okay.
You ever hear of a platypus? A platypus is it's an extinct bird. No. A platitude is what? No, it is. A platypus is an extinct bird, but the word platitudinal has something to do with it. A platitude is, a cliche, basically, that it's used so often that it ceases to have really very much import behind it. Okay.
Using the word to pull out, it was a little bit to laugh.
Yes.
Actually, I was thinking more of education than love, frankly, but okay, you can have it your way. I don't mind. Humor is good. Okay, now I just lost my heading over here. Crisis avoidance. Okay, so we mentioned Murphy's Law. A lot of what I say is common sense, in these slides especially, but there's an element of common sense in everything I say, hopefully. That's a good thing. So you have to have backup plans in place, and you want to make sure you avoid the crisis. So don't leave things to the last minute, because if you leave things to the last minute, typically things will blow up. And, obviously, I'm writing don't leave things to the last minute as I did this slide 2 in the morning last night. You realize there's an inherent something in there, but we won't go there. Pre-plan for all anticipatable crises. So, I'm not going to go through the catalog here, but, if you're working on a project and there's a deadline and it depends on the internet, well, the internet does go down. Your hard disk can crash. Your computer can break. There could be a power failure. Lots of bad things can happen. Now, with enough pre-planning, A, you'll have enough time to deal with those things, and B, you will have implemented measures to deal with those things. So if you have a backup, it's not a big deal. If you have a UPS, some kind of UPS stands for uninterruptible power supply, which basically means that if the lights go out, your computer will continue to run for half an hour, 45 minutes, or whatever the case may be, probably without the internet, but you can at least back up your files that you're working on and shut it down in an orderly fashion. So you won't have a corrupt hard disk. All of these things are involving what I mentioned before, discipline and pre-planning. So we're not here to give you the complete checklist of everything you need to do to make sure that everything is anticipated. By the way, one good way, if you want to apply for any one of many government-funded programs, they will give you such a checklist of things you ought to be doing anyway, that it'll be an education for you. Is your data backed up? Where's your medical equipment? Who knows how to use it? All that kind of stuff. Anyway, pre-planning. Have drills to exercise crisis recovery procedures and to test their efficacy. Another one of those words I like to use. I like it too. And you've got to have them, often enough that they stick in people's minds. Listen, in your home, you should be having fire drills with your family every once in a while. In addition to the smoke alarms, the smoke alarm is ringing. Okay, I think I'll just freeze. That doesn't really help matters much. Where's the exit? Where's the baby? Who's going to do what? It's true in a home environment. It's true in a business environment. I told you before that I saw somebody having a heart attack before my eyes, and thank God there was somebody around who was an EMT, and he was standing there right there in the room, and he had his wits about him. But that organization happens to have a plan that would have worked almost as well had there not been an EMT in the room. But with no plan and no EMT in the room, the defibrillator on the wall would have been absolutely useless. Right. So that's what the drills and the education are all about. And employee redundancy is an important thing that is very difficult sometimes in a small organization, but it basically means that no one person should be considered indispensable by your organization. They could pick up and leave. They could be hit by a truck, God forbid. They could get angry at you and decide to do something malicious, either by omission or commission. And so you need to have fallbacks. And so it's not really that hard to do. This is your job. This is your job. Doing each other's jobs. Not that I want you to do it, just to back each other up. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a situation with